the River Trading Post Pod Network. Here we'll bring you interesting tips, tidbits, information, discussions, and music, and just about everything else of interest to collectors of fine Native American art. The River Trading Post Pod Network is brought to you by River Trading Post. Be sure to drop in and visit with us in Santa Fe, Scottsdale, or Chicagoland. And of course, you can visit with us anytime at rivertradingpost.com. Sarah Penman is a Scot who lives in the United States. Her interest in the Native American community began back in 1988 when she was invited to Greengrass, South Dakota, home of Chief Arvil Looking Horse, the spiritual leader of the Lakota-Dakota Nakota Nation and keeper of the sacred calf pipe. As a result of this meeting, Sarah learned of the Chief Bigfoot Memorial Ride, a 250-mile spiritual journey on horseback undertaken by the Lakota to commemorate the Wounded Knee Massacre of 1890. The ride was held for 5 consecutive years in December, and Sarah joined the ride from 1988 to 1990. During the ride, Sarah began to take photographs, and upon her return to write articles for The Circle, Minnesota's largest Native American newspaper. As she began listening to the stories that the elders told, she was inspired to begin gathering their life histories. And in 1991, Sarah received a grant from the Minnesota Historical Society in support of this work, which led her to begin producing video and radio documentaries. One of Sarah's documentaries is entitled Honor the Grandmothers. In this 2-part series, you will hear the voices of Dakota-Lakota women elders talking about their lives as wives and mothers, harvesters, dreamers, workers, healers, and teachers in a time of struggle and survival. Elders are the keepers of the memory of the people. They remember the teachings of their ancestors, and they pass them on to coming generations. In this program, River Trading Post presents Part 2 of Honor the Grandmothers.
My name is Juanita Espinosa, and this is Honor the Grandmothers. In the first half of the program, we met 5 Dakota-Lakota women elders: Iola Columbus, Cecilia Montgomery, Alice Newholy, Celine Not Helpham, and Stella Pretty Sounding Flute. They told us about growing up in traditional families and learning the values of their grandmothers. And they talked about being sent to boarding schools and told to forget their language and their beliefs. In this program, we'll hear how the grandmothers dealt with the challenges of a changing world and how they gained strength from remembering the traditions.
Everybody worked in. You know, nowadays, the white men says we're lazy Indians, you know. But we weren't. My grandmothers used to say, Tagoja tokata iotiakikte. That means, our grandchildren, you are going to have a hard life. And we are.
Coming out of the boarding schools, young Native people were confronted with a society that rejected the values of their culture. Government policies had devastated the traditional economy, and the reservations offered neither jobs nor income. Many found themselves forced to seek a living away from home. They had not forgotten what they were taught by the elders: to work hard, to have respect, and to care for others. The grandmothers found work as launderers, cement finishers, waitresses, and potato pickers. They married, raised children, and supported their parents. Most of the time they were poor. To this day, they survive by sharing.
I get $28.50 every 2 weeks. It's not, I don't think it's enough. Sometimes I have to save or go without it. But that first check, $28.50, I have to share. I have to share where I'm staying. I have to help pay gas or electricity or phone or food
food. And sometimes I got $3 left. I have to stretch that.
The average income for low income is a couple that gets SSI, they get something like 500 and something a month. Now, you know you can't live on that. You can't live on that, especially if you have to pay your rent, your lights, your gas, your water, and you don't have that much to live on.
For 39 years, I've been waiting for a house. But every time I go to the tribal housing authority, they said there's people, more than 100 people waiting before you. And last time this man, I asked him, he said, 1993, they're going to build some more, but I can't promise you. So that's tough. They always say I'm a poor-ass snake. But at least snake has a hole to live in. I don't have that.
In the grandmothers' lives, nothing came on a silver platter. Housing, food, education, and treaty rights all had to be fought for and defended. In their world, activism was a fact of life, something they did to take care of themselves and their community.
For 17 years, we hauled water from the city. That's how long we lived out here without water, without heat, until we went to the city. We had to haul our own water in milk, them big 5-10-gallon milk cans or whatever kind of can or whatever you had. That's how we hauled our water, and that's how we used to take our baths and everything. But we really put up a fight. We went to city council, a bunch of us from here, and a lot of Indians from town, too. And when they agreed to give us water, you ought to hear us. Everybody out, and I hollered. Everybody sure liked it because I let out my Indian shrill. Because, see, I was chairman of the sanitary district that time.
This was back in the early 70s, or maybe even 69. The men, there was no jobs around here, so the men had to go away from this area to work. Some of them went into Minneapolis. Some of them went to canning factories like in Fairmont. So there were mostly women here. The men were gone for the week and they'd come back. So when the election time came around, somebody had put in my name. And I was curious, what do they do? Well, one way to find out is to get in there. And at that time, I was voted in as a secretary-treasurer.
When somebody's in a Susan hospital, any of our elderly we know are not getting the right care, we go to the Susan and check on them. And that's where we went Friday, 3 of us from our task force. We wanted to talk to the head doctor, Dr. Larson. We wanted to talk to him, and they said, he's busy, he won't be able to see you. Well, we're going to sit here till we get to see him. And we did. We sat there. We went in at 10:30. We never got out of there until 4. And we finally got them to move this lady to the regional hospital. But Dr. Larson came, and he was in a hurry, and he left. And he never did come back after that. He knew we were after his ass. So these are some of the things that's happening to our elderly. So we said, we're going to make it our business. Every time we hear some of our elderly at the Susan, we're going to go over there and nosy around, and we want something done about it. If the health board can't do anything, or if the SUD don't try to do something about it, then we're going to go to Dr. Sloan in Aberdeen. If he don't do something about it, we're going to go into Washington. See, we're going to go the route till we know something is done.
So then time went on where I became a tribal chairperson. By then, we were pretty well established as an active council. We had 4 women on the council and 1 man. And he didn't like that too well. But, so we started getting more and more funds for housing. We started getting more funds for Indian health and social services. And so we got all these programs. And once there was funds, and once there was some authority attached to it, then the men became interested. Then there were jobs available because we had funds to operate these programs. And then back in 78 or 79, then I retired.
But anyway, I was noted for my big mouth, I guess, because wherever there was something going and if it concerned us, our community, or our Indians, well, I was right there.
In Lakota-Dakota tradition, community service took many forms. One way of affirming the beauty of life was art. It served to honor tradition and creativity. Today, grandmothers continue to practice and teach traditional arts. They use old materials like porcupine quills and have adopted new tools like the treadle sewing machine. Whatever they use, their art is inspired by their unique vision.
I'll make my own designs, turtle and war bonnets, and that chief I just finished today. I'm going to make that chief sitting bull. I saw his picture. I was looking at it, and that's where I got that. And then the buffalo skull, and that buffalo design, an eagle. Lone star, broken star, and falling star.
When I make something, I want that piece to represent me, what people see in me. You don't have no bumps or nothing in it. And it's nice. And I want people to say, well, she made that piece. Then they also said, once you make something like that, and then you see you're giving part of yourself to whoever is buying it or anything. The Mount Rushmore, when they light it up, you can see the lights. That's the Black Hills Road. Here's the porcupines. See the quills in there? Well, when you want to pet a porcupine, you run your hand this way towards the tail. Otherwise, you get stuck.
And my ancestors, before the white man came, they always used porcupine quills to decorate whatever they were wearing, moccasins, or their buffalo robes, or deer hides, deer dresses. They used this tahishpa, that's what it is, porcupine quills. And they would take these porcupine quills and they would dye them out of the fruit that God put on Mother Earth. They put together the yellow, the purple, the green, the reds, and the blues, and only them could do these things.
We went up to Crow Agency, and that's one funny thing that happened up there. We were trying to teach these younger ones how to do quill work. This old man came in with a cane. Boy, he's really stumping around and said, I was ready to run. So I was thinking, gee, there goes my scalp, you know. And he said, I thought I'll never see this day. I knew this day was coming. And I was thinking, what is he talking about? A long time ago, he said, my grandfather told me, my grandfather, that one of these days we'll be sitting side by side with our worst enemies, trying to learn what we lost. And today, I know what it is. He said, our people used to do a lot of quill work, but we lost it all. And now, he said, you people are sitting with our worst enemies trying to learn what we lost. And I was thinking, jeez.
This is my sewing machine where I sew all this stuff.
You might think it's a mower machine, but it's my sewing, treadle singer sewing machine. That person that showed me and taught me how to make star quilts is long gone. That's my aunt. First, we start out with squares, and when we make a quilt, squares, you sew them together and make it big. I'll make mine. I made a mistake. Mine was big one side and smaller on this way. And I don't want to show it to her. I want her to, I know what she's going to say. She's going to make me rip it and sew it over again. So I show it to her, and she said, that's your first, that's the first thing you make. And so we'll just keep it like that. We'll put lining on it, and you use it, she said. But later on, you're going to have to make a real good one. And, I was so happy when she told me that. Oh, good. Oh, Auntie. I was all happy.
That's where this here star quilt come from. Was our ancestors used to watch the heavens, everything that was, the stars, the moon, and the sun. They would observe them, and they would really study them. So that's where the star quilts come from. That's what my grandmother said. Mary was growing up, and they sat there and sewed by hand. They didn't have sewing machines. Again, I thank God that no matter if I'm having hardships, I have a sewing machine.
When the grandmothers were growing up, spirituality was practiced as a way of life. But in their lifetimes, they saw traditional practices and gatherings outlawed. Today, Native people have won some religious freedom, and the grandmothers are walking a path between two worlds. Many of them are members of Christian denominations. At the same time, they maintain beliefs that are based on balance, harmony, and respect for Mother Earth.
Back in 1934, when the Indian Reorganization Act came about, was a law. They put a stop to their Indian ways. They told them, you cannot practice your Indian traditions because that's paganism. Go to church. Learn a Christian way.
Our ancestors, our grandmothers, our parents, they had to put away their chanupas, their sacred pipe and eagle feathers. They couldn't use them no more. And if they were brought out, they were going to punish them. And it was always the soldiers that were the killers.
So then they quit. They quit doing these things. In some ways, they sort of sneak it, but then after a while, then Christianity took over.
My grandma on my mother's side used to always have one of us carry on some kind of traditional celebration at one of these doings. And my brother had Mazashala one year, so they had 3 teepees, these big teepees set up, and they had a big giveaway, and he had to ride a horse, and he had 3 horses that he was leading, and every one of them had all kind of Indian stuff on it, like beadwork. Just think, in them days, beadwork was just given away. It wasn't sold, and it was made by real Indians, blankets and everything. Always remember that. Nowadays, though, just think, all that died with our elderly, traditional people. You don't see that no more. And that's sad, because won't that be great if this generation could see something like that? It makes me lonesome. It really does. Sometimes I always think of it, and I always think, why couldn't my mother have carried on something like this, but all my grandfolks were just so traditional, and it makes me feel so bad when I think of the times that we enjoyed going to these places.
There's nobody here to tell me anything about traditional. There's nobody here to tell me about the sacred pipe, the chanupa, because it all comes to me. No matter if I went to school, white man's school all my life, and I was taught how to pray in a white man's way, yet I can't forget my language, and I pray like my ancestors did.
To me, I said, when I picked up that pipe and prayed with that pipe, I said, I stick to that one religion. After all, I said, we're all worshiping the one person, but each in our different ways. You people are worshiping in the white man's way, and I'm worshiping in Indian way. And I said, maybe the Chinese have their worship, way of worshiping too. I said, but we all don't understand each other. We don't agree on each other.
I could be in church, but I said, I'm a Dakota. So I said, you know that. I said, my house is a church. Outside, I said, these hills and mountains, and every place wherever we worship you, and we pray to you and give you thanks and honor you and call you by your Indian name. That's our church, I said.
I always think, what if I died tomorrow? What was going to happen? Who's the grandmothers that are going to try to save the reservation? Who are the grandmothers and grandfathers that are going to try to save all our legends and our beadwork, quill work, and all that? Said, I'm just about ready to hang up my big sign where it says, rest in peace.
Throughout their lives, the grandmothers have met many new challenges, from the boarding schools to work, family, and community service. Today, they are facing yet another challenge, to recognize and carry out their role as elders. They have seen more change than perhaps any generation before. They have a closer connection to the traditions than those who came after. And in teaching the grandchildren, they create a link to the next generation. The richness of their experience continues the circle of past, present, and future.
I don't know that they noticed if I was getting older or not. What kind of bothered me, people would come to me and, present tobacco to me, and they'd come and ask me certain things, and I was thinking, well, do I have the right? Am I worthy or what? And it bothered me so much that I talked to some other elder women and also to a medicine man. And they said that when you reach a certain stage in your life, when you become an elder, you have all those rights. And yet, it says, when I'm with a group of elders, elderly elders, I'm thinking about 80, 90 years old. It makes me feel so humble that here are people who have a wealth of wisdom, and I'm just like a baby elder. I don't know what else to call it, but I'm just beginning.
Got 9 grandchildren, and every chance I get, I always tell them, these real old-time, we call them ohunkaka, and I was telling them their bedtime stories. Our grandmothers used to tell this to us just before we were going to go to sleep, to make sure we were listening. Every one of us had to say, huh.
That reminds me, a year ago, I think it was March, I was invited to the school where these kids go to school. Little Joe, my grandson, said, Grandma, can you come tomorrow? Our teacher wants you to come over and tell some old Indian stories. So I went the next day. I told them about Iktomi, that means spider. You've heard the story about that. And then I sang them this song about Mashtin Chala. You ever hear that? You know, Mashtin Chala, now easy now. Sente na ki slow, slow ki. And oh, they got a kick out of it. And I said, now what does that mean? So I told them, I had to explain it. I told them, well, this little rabbit got jealous of his companion, and he danced around till his tail flew off. And oh, they got a kick out of it because he was so jealous.
I feel so strongly about preserving our Indian ways, our cultures. And that's why I'm trying to organize this grandmother society and talking to the grandmothers, trying to encourage them to pass on their knowledge to the young people, because a lot of them don't know that. They weren't raised that way. And it isn't so much that I think they should learn how to bead or these things. It would help, it would help them to know what a turnip, an Indian turnip looks like, or what cherries look like, and how to preserve those things. But more importantly is our value system. That's why, we've survived as a nation.
There's an old song that everybody knows. They call it Inkpata. And there was two lovers. There was a man and this girl. They were lovers, but they couldn't get along together. They couldn't communicate or something. So then this girl went and she stood on a hill and she sang her love song to him so he would come back. That's what this is all about. Anyway, it goes something like this. I hope I can sing it. It goes like, Inkpatana wajina, Shina chicho say, Maya, lechi guana. See, she was begging him to come back, so she was waving her shawl and waving it to come back to her. And that's what that's about. She sang that, kept singing that song.
But slowly, it's the young people are beginning to recognize that, we did have a beautiful culture and that we'd like to go back to that, but they don't have the old people to teach them, just our values or the traditional way. So then what's happening is that they go to different reservations, or they have a mentor who tells them that this is the way it used to be done. So they're trying to bring that back. Like I said, the medicine man said, Iola, you no longer share your information or your skills and knowledge with just Indians. The Great Spirit Creator created 4 races, the black, yellow, red, and white. He said, you need to work with them people. That's why he said they're all eager to know how it is the Indian people come to survive. There must be some way that we can teach other nations about our ways. That's another part of my dream, you might say.
You gave us another day, I said, to honor you, to give you thanks that there's no bombs up in the air, there's no machine guns pointing at us, they're not using no chemicals on us. I said, you are watching out for us. So we thank you for us, for our lives, because you're the head of it. You're watching out for us. So thank you for Mother Earth. The white man calls it the United States of America.
This has been part 2 of Honor the Grandmothers, a documentary honoring the stories of Dakota Lakota women elders. Honor the Grandmothers was produced by Kitchen Table Productions at the studios of KFAI Radio and Film in the Cities in Minneapolis and St. Paul. The producers were Monica Brauerlein and Sarah Penman. Ken Bramstead was the engineer. The music was by Paula Horn and Kevin Locke. The drum song was created by the Haudenosaunee Singers of Sioux Valley, Manitoba, and performed by Karen Artichoker, Catherine Grayday, Donna Haukus, and Patty Wells of Vermilion, South Dakota. I'm Juanita Espinosa. Thanks for listening.
Honor the Grandmothers was made possible in part with funding from the Minnesota Humanities Commission in cooperation with the National Endowment for the Humanities and the Minnesota State Legislature, the Paul Robeson Fund for Independent Media, the Minnesota Historical Society, the Headwaters Fund, and a KFAI Film in the City Studio Access Grant. Thanks also to our fiscal agents, Compass in St. Paul, and the Prairie Island Dakota community. The views expressed do not necessarily represent the funders or this broadcast station. For a cassette copy of this program, write Kitchen Table Productions, P.O. Box 14322, Minneapolis, Minnesota 55414.
Thank you for joining us for part 2 of Honor the Grandmothers. Also, be sure to enjoy our other podcasts, especially made for you, collectors of fine Native American art. This is Joe Zeller, your host, saying goodbye for now. You have been listening to a presentation of the River Trading Post Pod Network. Join us again for tips, tidbits, information, discussions, and music, and just about everything else of interest to collectors of Native American art. The River Trading Post Pod Network is brought to you by River Trading Post. If you ever get the chance, drop in and visit with us in Santa Fe, Scottsdale, or Chicagoland. And of course, you can visit us anytime at rivertradingpost.com.